Welcome back from the break, everyone. Once again, it's our absolute privilege to have Patch My PC joining our again in our training. We have Michael here from the team, and I see David James lurking in the background as well there. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining. I just want to be very clear. We usually do not have vendors joining our trainings, but Hazmat PC is not just any vendor. Not because they don't have great products, because they do, but they also have been community champions for the config manager and Intune community for years and years and years, supporting user groups, supporting community events, and that hits home pretty quick for at least for me and Andrew here. So thank you guys for what you're doing for the community, and well, keep doing it because it's downright amazing. They produce so much good content. Every single week there is something. So again, thank you for doing that. But without further ado, before letting Michael get on with his presentation, David James, would you like to say a few words?
Can you guys hear me okay, Johan?
Yes, sir.
Mic issues today. Okay, good. You know, I've known Johan going back a ways. I remember one time in Seattle, you rented a TV studio, and we did like an interview and recording. It was a great time. But the one thing that I really enjoy, and this kind of hit home for me when I left Microsoft, when I retired from Microsoft after being there for over 20 years, is the community that a lot of us are a part of. Is, you know, even though, and I had this luxury when I was at Microsoft of working with so many companies in so many industries, whether it's like retail or education or manufacturing or you know, defense or you know, so many industries, and you'd go in there, and at the heart of all these companies, someone has to keep the tech running. Someone has to keep the computers working. And even though the businesses at the front door are very different, in the back, they're very similar, right? And so that's one of the things I love most about this community, is just to see all of us folks that keep basically all the businesses in the world operating, because we keep them operating and we keep the computers they run on working. And so you know, when I get to join on call and see, you know, Andrew and Johan and friendly faces that go back for years, I remember that for me, this community is more than a job. It's been a journey and an experience. And so we're always happy to get on call with other people that are going through like-minded journeys and see how we can help each other out. But thanks for the invite, Johan.
Sure, appreciate it. All right, let's see if I can grant Mr. Michael permissions to actually share the screen. I think that will help a lot.
I think I do have a share button here. Let's see if this works.
Beautiful. That looks good.
All right. Yeah. So, hi everyone. I'm Michael Escamilla. I'm a customer engineer here at Patch My PC. So, yeah, if you ever end up becoming a customer or something, you're most likely going to interact with me in support, or like any kind of calls and stuff. So, yeah. So, I mean, basically, what we specialize in is automating your packaging of applications and updates. You know, because I'm sure, as you've learned, you know, it's not too difficult to do once, maybe, but got to do a dozen times, 100 times, multiple. It adds up, right? And you have better things to do. You got configurations to create and all that. So that's kind of where we step in. And so, yeah, what we have for Intune specifically is our portal here. You'll see where I'm at is portal.patchmypc.com. And so, yeah, what you do is you sign in here. You go through an Intra ID authentication, how that's already set up. And so then you're greeted here once you've already connected the portal to Intune this way. And so the way that we do this is when you've enabled the Patch My PC integration, you're applying API permissions on the enterprise application over an Intra ID, and then that's how we push everything. We're doing everything through Graph API in the background. And so, yeah, and what's kind of nice about this is if we go over to settings here, I'll kind of go through a few of these key ones here, and then we'll kind of go into an actual deployment. Is over on the user side, this is how you can actually manage who's in here. So it's kind of nice because you're outside of Intune, but you can also manage who can do things by publishing apps over here. So we can add individual users like myself. just through my email address, or we can also do it through intra ID groups as well. I don't have any configured here right now, but you can see over in the top right corner, I can add this. We'll display all your groups here, and you can select one and determine what kind of role in the portal here that user has, or that group of users has, I should say. Another good setting over here is our branding setting. And so what I currently have right now is one package created, and I'll kind of go in here and explain a little more. So we have this notification over here on the right that can appear to users if an application app or update is going to run and that process needs to be closed prior to it updating. So if anyone's familiar with using like PowerShell App Deploy Toolkit, this is very similar functionality like that, where if that process is running, we'll show it. And what's nice is you can add additional languages, you know, in case you're like, or you have an org that's across the world, you need to support that. And then what's cool too is you can assign these to groups of devices by creating multiple of these branding packages. And this makes it nice for if you do have multiple areas of the organization and you need to have like different logos show up. This makes it very easy for that. And then the main setting over here is the sync schedule. And so this is the automation portion of Patch My PC. And so this is during the time that we go and check for new versions of applications of all the deployments you've created. So by default, your portals are created to run about 2 a.m. your local time, which makes it nice because we do add apps to our catalog throughout the day, morning, midday, and afternoon. So as long as you run kind of in the middle of the night, you're good to have gotten all the updates from the prior day. So yeah, from there, let's just kind of jump into creating a deployment. So what's nice here is we have our full app catalog by clicking this one on the top left, and I can just easily search for an app here. And so we'll do a classic like Google Chrome here. And what's nice is when you click this here, you're greeted with if the app does support multiple OSs like Google Chrome, we have both the Windows and Mac OS version. And then you get a nice preview of the last time we've updated the app, as well as the current version that it's on, and even some architecture options that we have for it. So what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and hit deploy. And then the first page that you're greeted with is some of those options you saw in the preview. So we have that architecture here. So we do support Chrome for Windows with ARM as well. Now that's currently in public preview, should be showing up in GA pretty soon. And then you have a couple other options with installer types. So if the vendor does support multiple types, as well as install context. So for Chrome, we only have system context, but there are applications out there like Zoom that do have both a good user and system context that we can support both scenarios for. So what you do is you hit next after that, and then you hit this configuration tab. And so this is how you can customize the installation experience for this application. And so as we go down these customizations here, you'll see the first one's install parameters. So everything that we're going to supply here by default is what's going to make the installation silent, as well as suppress any reboots. But what's nice is we give you the option to just tack on any other additional parameters that you need. So if you know that this installer supports some extra stuff, you can easily customize it. Something like Snagit comes to mind, where you can pass like a license key as part of an install parameter. You can easily have this here and always know that's going to get applied. Then we have this configuration process here, or conflicting process here. So this goes back to that branding notification I mentioned on prompting the user for closing the application. So by default, majority of the apps are set to perform the installation. And that's because we know the installers either can successfully install in the background, or they properly handle just closing the processes on their own. But if there is an application, say like Notepad++, we know these apps will fail if they're not closed prior to the upgrade. Those ones will automatically be set to notify the user, and that prompt would show up for them. And what's nice is you can click this conflicting process button here in the bottom left of this area. And we're always going to have a pre-filled out section of exe processes that we know are associated with this. So you can always add your own, remove some. If anyone's ever had to update like OBS Studio, this list is like 100 things long because you got to close like everything. So we like to keep this pre-populated for you. And with settings here around this, you can actually determine like how long this notification appears for. And then you get some good options around like if the user's in focus assist mode. This is typically automatically enabled by certain functions of apps. So you may not want to disturb them if you're doing that. And then you can do some common stuff too by like determining how many times the user has to snooze that. So you can kind of give some control back to the user and allowing them to snooze the update and, you know, take place at a different time. And then also what to do on their behalf if that timeout occurs and they haven't done anything. So yeah, a lot of functionality around that feature there. And then we can also modify some of the data over on the Intune side as far as how the app is interpreted after installation. So things like managing the return codes. These are the codes, the default ones that show up in Intune. And so if you ever wanted to say, like, I always want it to trigger a soft reboot notification, even if it is a 0 success, you can easily just edit this here. And then now we'll make that modification on the Intune side, and then that's how Intune will interpret these return codes now. So makes it nice, especially if an application does support like some custom ones that are just like outside the normal, makes it very easy to add that. You can also add some additional metadata to the app info over on the Intune side. So we'll always fill out a lot of this metadata with some information URLs and stuff. But if you wanted to add some custom notes, like maybe for your team or something in there, we can pass that along to Intune as well. And then some other common default ones we have here. If you don't like those desktop shortcuts on your computer, we can remove those for you. If the app supports built-in auto update mechanisms, we can disable those as well. And then if you're going to use any of those available assignments on Intune for Company Portal, we can also enable that setting to enable the uninstall button as well, since that's not set by default. And then depending on the OS architecture, if you are selecting like certain apps that don't have ARM ones, you would have the option to select it to allow it to be ran on ARM, since it does have that translation layer. But then going beyond that, we have this additional tools option here. And so you'll see here, we have quite a few extra options too to kind of help customize the package. And so one of the first things is scripts here. And so what we can do is actually run scripts of various types before or after installations occur. And this can be both for the install or uninstall process. So for an example here with Chrome, I can add a post-install script. And then what I'm greeted with is this UI where I can select some different script file types here. We default to PowerShell. And I can even import one that I already have. So if I go over here, I've got this set Google Chrome homepage one. And so what this is just going to do is modify the registry after Chrome's installed and set the homepage to patch my PC. But what's nice about our cloud version is this actually just becomes an IDE now. So I can actually just edit the script directly in here and make some changes really quickly that way. And then you'll notice too at the bottom, I have this argument section as well. So if you were to format this PowerShell script to accept install parameter, or parameters, you can actually just like pass a parameter this way and a value to it. So this way you can just write a script once and then just kind of dynamically change it per deployment here. So that makes it pretty nice. And then so now what we do is we'll include that PS1 file in the root of the package as we build the Intune Win file. And then we'll just call that PowerShell file at the end of the installation. Yeah, and then something we that's used commonly alongside that is extra files. So we can actually just include extra like license files or config files in the root of the package. And so what we commonly see is like customers using post-install scripts to move, say, like a config file somewhere on the machine that maybe customizes the application's installation. So you can easily do that. And for MSI files, if you're deploying one of those, we can easily attach an MST transform file and call that pretty easily too. And then what's a nice feature of our cloud tool here is dependencies and being able to directly create those over on the Intune side. So what you'll see here is I already have a couple apps created for .NET Desktop Runtime, as well as the C++ redistributables. And so what I can do is actually select this, and what we'll do on the Intune side after publishing this is we'll build a dependency chain, and which that'll do is make sure that this gets installed before running this other deployment. So this makes it really nice for those desktop runtimes where those are prerequisites that maybe the installer of the vendor doesn't include in there. And then continuing on here, we can also help you add role scope tags. These are security tags that are built out over on the Intune side. We basically just pull over any that you've created there, and we can attach these onto the application deployments as well. Same thing with categories. These are built out on the Intune side, and you can include these on there as well. That way you can categorize your apps over on the company portal side for your users. And then kind of along the same lines, we have our ESP profile section. So this is for autopilot and your enrollment status page profiles. If you want to have some apps in that blocking apps section of the profile, you can automatically select one here, and then we'll add this app into that list for you. And then as we automatically create newer versions, we'll just move over the new version in there, so you don't have to maintain that manually.
Michael, there was a question there in the chat I think was worth bringing up. Basically, does this require a separate agent? And no, it doesn't. This is remote controlling Intune. It's the best way I can phrase it, I think.
Yeah, a common way we like to phrase it is at Patch My PC, we create apps and updates, but we don't actually deploy them, right? We're just creating application objects in Intune, and then Intune does the deployment. So yeah, no agent for us. Excuse me. All right, yeah, and then the last section here is this retention policy. So by default, what we typically do is create an app or update in Intune, and then we only maintain the most recent version of it over there. And so this gives you the option to tell us like, hey, go ahead and keep 1 or 2 older versions. And this just gives you kind of like a rollback option in case like the latest version doesn't work for you. But you should be using your update rings for that, right? To make sure you minimize that impact. So we'll kind of get to that too. But yeah, once you're done configuring this here, you get to this assignment section. And so this is where you can actually have the assignments automatically created as well so that they deploy automatically. And so by default over here on the right, we have this add assignment button. And so we have 4 different types here. And so what you'll probably recognize is we have the required available and then uninstall type here. Actually, I think this got shifted around on me. So these 3 are the normal assignment types you'll see when creating an application in Intune. So if you select any of these 3 types, we'll create an application over in Intune that's intended to be used as like a base installer. So actually getting the app installed on the machine. And then we have this 4th type here, the add update only type. So if you select this assignment type, we'll create a separate package over in Intune that will only run if the app's actually installed on the machine. And so this kind of acts like a Windows update, but as an app object in Intune. And so what I'll do is I'll create one of each here as an example, and then we'll kind of take a look at Intune and see what that looks like. So yeah, when you select a type here, you're greeted with the option to add either the default all devices or user groups. And then you also list all your intra ID groups here as well. And so you can select these as an include or exclude so that they show up that way over on the Intune side. But I'm just going to leave that on all devices there for an available. And then I'll do one for add update only. And then once you've added these here, you have some other common things you can do to assignments, which is add filters from Intune. And so you can, any of those that you've built out, you can apply them here, as well as the IME notification level. So you can kind of determine how that is, as well as the content optimization delivery setting here, whether it's foreground or background. Okay, so yeah, I see that question from David. So currently from our cloud product, you'll notice the assignments are all built as ASAP. And so, yeah, as soon as they're created over there in Intune, they're going to want to go out to the devices the next time it checks in and pulls those down. There's some different options you have if you use our on-prem version, and I can kind of go in that a little later as well. But I'll also touch on our update rings feature too after we create this deployment, which kind of addresses if you want to kind of shift out those assignments. Yeah, so I'll hit deploy here. Yeah, so you just hit deploy once you've got that configured. And then you'll notice here we've dropped down to the deployment section, and then our status is in progress. So what we're doing at this point is we're actually going out to Google, downloading the Chrome installer, creating a file with all those customizations that it's going to apply during the installation. We generate that Intune Win file, and then we push it over to Intune with the Graph API. So yeah, that's kind of how, like, we're basically doing the same thing you'd be doing manually, just automating it a little bit and pushing it over through API. So yeah, I'll let that fit. Oh, go ahead, Johan.
I think worth mentioning that you don't have to assign the apps. You can just have them being created, and you can do your own assignments whenever you like them. And when you do that in Intune, you have an option to specify a date and time. So
true, yes, that's a good thing to point out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll notice over here, actually, when I had zoomed in prior, we do have this option at the bottom to say app without assignments. This just creates it over there. And we will continue to create the new version for you. And so actually, if I select this option here, you'll notice I get this this option here to say copy forward. So what this can do is if you do manually create the assignments for this object over in Intune, we'll copy over any assignments that are currently created in the future. So yeah, definitely good call out there, Johan. All right. Yeah, so let's see if these have actually showed up on Intune yet. Okay, so they're there, and I'll kind of let it finish doing the assignments before we click in. But if I search over here in Intune, I'll zoom in here. You'll notice in that one Chrome deployment, I ended up with two packages here. So you'll see this top one's associated with that available assignment I created, and then the bottom one is associated with that update only type. And so if I select the Google Chrome app, the top one here, you'll see what we've actually created, as I've mentioned, is basically the same thing you would be doing manually. We create an Intune Win file, create the app, and push that up over here. Over in the properties here, all the metadata is always filled out, so that way you're not having to go grab this yourself and kind of applying the new, release channel kind of stuff. We always have a logo here. You always want to make sure that company portal looks good, when your users have to go self-service. And then we're setting all these things like the install command. We have our own script wrapper. We call it script runner. We're just kind of applying that with our different install switches there. And you'll see some of those customizations I applied to right here. So I got that zero code soft reboot that I set. That's over here. And then with the required section, I'll kind of call this out quickly, but this is what's actually going to be different about the update package we look at. So we always set this to the minimum so they install on any machine. And then we kind of just switch around the system architecture based off whether you selected like ARM or x64. And then on the detection side, everything is a PowerShell script for the stuff that we create. So you can actually come in here and take a look at this. Our Intune scripts are pretty interesting. They're really small and stuff. So yeah, if you ever have a chance, take a look at those, copy that into Visual Studio Code. And you'll see those things like that dependency that I created that's on there. And then ultimately down here, that assignment that we added. And then yes, just to double answer that, yes, we do have a config manager side for Patch My PC too. But let's take a look at that update package for Google Chrome here on the Intune side. Oh, maybe let's refresh here, see if there we go. So you'll notice for the update here, for the most part, it's going to look the same. We kind of built out the same type of app here. For the most part, everything's the same besides the name. And the first thing that's a little different is our install command. So this update switch here, we have update package, and that's just in case there is anything specific with the update. This will run those specific things. But then the main thing here is the requirement section here. So you'll notice we have an additional requirement rule. So the way Intune works, kind of like config manager, is before the app actually attempts to run, it evaluates all the requirements to make sure they're met. So this PowerShell script that we add here checks, is Google Chrome actually installed on this machine? And it also goes a little further too. It wants to make sure it's the exact same version type. But we're going to see, is it the 64-bit version, the MSI installer type, and then ultimately, is the installed version less than whatever this update package version is? So if all that comes back true and applicable, it sends it up to Intune. Intune says, okay, yep, that it's met. Let's go ahead and run this update package. So this is really nice because there is no third-party integration for updates in Intune that we can just tap into like we did with like Config Manager. So this is our way of kind of mimicking software updates, but for apps through Intune. So and it works pretty well. So this makes it nice because you can actually scope these updates to all your devices and they only run on the ones that need it. Yeah, so we can hop back over to the cloud here in the cloud portal. Another nice feature here is our discovery feature over here on the left. And so this is a way to try and attempt to help you guys figure out what apps are in your environment that we currently have in our catalog and can help you patch. And so the way that we do this is over on Intune. If you go to the apps panel and then monitor, there's this discovered apps report here at the very bottom. And so this is an inventory list of apps that the IME agent collects and then sends up to Intune, and then Intune consolidates that onto this one report. And so what we do is download that report and compare it with the apps in our catalog. And so basically everything here, we're telling you like, hey, this is in your environment. You could patch with Patch My PC. And then up top, you have this unmanaged and managed tab. And this just shows you whether or not you've created deployments in the portal here for those apps that have been found. Yeah, and so once you're here, to make it even easier too, we have this deploy button on the right. So if you do find one like, hey, I actually do want to send that patch out like Microsoft Edge, I can just hit deploy, and then we jump straight over to this same deployment thing that we had earlier. And so while we're here on the Microsoft Edge, I'll point out this enable update rings feature that I kind of talked about earlier. And so this is our way to try and help you guys, kind of slowly roll out updates in the way that you want. And so you'll see when I enable that, it starts to make 2 rings by default. And then what you're doing is configuring amount of delay between the rings. And so I actually have a template here I can apply to kind of build this out a little quicker. And so what I'll do is I'll hit apply template here. I have Michael's template. And these templates make it nice because now I've just built out all these assignments really quickly. And so you'll see what I have here is I have 3 rings, and then they're separated by 3 and 7 days here. And so the way this feature works is, let's say Edge version 1 comes out. What we do is we'll package that up with your customizations, and then we'll apply the assignments here from ring 1 to that version 1 package. And so now at this point, only that exists over on the Intune side as far as assignments go. And then we're going to wait 3 days, and on that 3rd day, we're actually going to add the second assignment for ring 2 onto that package. And so this is why we currently use like ASAP for these assignments, because basically what we do is we just add the assignment when it's needed. So now after 3 days, we have 2 groups of devices getting this update. But what's nice is, let's say on the 4th day, you actually need to, or I'm sorry, on the 4th day, Edge version 2 comes out. Well, what we'll do is actually package up version 2 of Edge, and then we'll move these assignments from ring 1 over from version 1 to version 2 of the package. And so now you got 2 packages in Intune that are deploying out into your environment. And then ultimately on the 7th day from that original version 1 coming out, we'll add this assignment for ring 3 onto version 1, because that's the next version in line for this ring. So it makes it nice because you'll know that every version that comes out is slowly going to go through your environment the way you intend to, based off all these rings. So yeah, I can just hit deploy there. And now Edge is going to move from a status of in progress to scheduled, because now we have a couple rings that need to be set in the future after so many syncs. Yeah, and then, yeah, so what I'll cover from here outside of discovery is back at the app catalog. So we actually do have a custom apps feature, we call it. And so this feature is really nice for situations where maybe we don't have that app in our catalog yet, or maybe you need to deploy like a very specific version of an app. So our catalog only allows you to deploy the most recent version. And so this allows you to like maybe deploy like a very specific version of Java or something like that. Let's see, there was a question. Correct, yeah. So it'll be based off of when the deployment started for that new version. So whenever that new version comes out into your environment, those update rings are basing it off that, not necessarily when we released it. And then it's definitely not on Patch Tuesday, since we're talking about like third-party vendors. They're a wild west of updates and when they release them. So yeah. But going back to the custom apps here, on the app catalog page, we have this add app button here in the top right. So I can select this, and what this allows me to do is upload an exe file or an MSI file, and then start creating an app, a custom app that we can deploy out through Patch My PC. And so as you step through this wizard, you're telling us a little bit about the app. So this is going to be how it appears in the app catalog. The configuration tab is basically how the application looks when it's installed on the machine. So, what context it is, the architecture, and then ultimately what it looks like in the add remove program section of the machine. Let me see if I can get this to show up. So yeah, what's the display name as well as the version. And the reason we ask for all this information is on the detection rule side. Our default method is creating that PowerShell script. So we'll just pull from these fields and then, stick that into the PowerShell script. And so what you can do here, I'll just go ahead and upload this MSI file that I have. And what's nice about the MSI files is they have their database inside of them that has all this information. We can typically pull all this this way. So you'll see the app name, description. We can even pull the app icon out of it if it's included, as well as all this configuration data. And then around detection, though, you can use custom detection rules. And so this allows you to, kind of use those built-in mechanism ones from Intune and all that. So I'll just leave this on default and hit create. Yeah, and so once that's there, you can also filter this app catalog page as well. And so one way to do that is by source, where I can select my tenant here, and I'll actually have my custom apps that I have uploaded in here. And so one of the nice things about the custom apps feature is even if you do have a small MSI like I just uploaded, that could be pretty easy to create an Intune on your own. But what's nice about doing it through Patch My PC is when you hit deploy now, you now are going through the same wizard and configuration options that you have with the other Patch My PC products. So you now have gained access to all the same exact tools that we have, and it allows you to be able to like standardize all your deployments as well, to make sure they all kind of act the same if you are leveraging us for those app deployments. And same thing around assignments. You can use the update rings as well, and the same type of assignment types. We can even create those add update only packages as well for your custom app. So yeah, I can just, hit apply template here, same way I deployed my other apps. And now my custom app is going out over to Intune. And then to kind of handle the updates for your custom apps, because once you've uploaded a custom app, we have no way of actually like automatically updating that since we're not, we don't really know what the app is. But we do give you a way to update to the next version. So if I go back and filter by the custom app again, you'll see I'm currently on version 1.1. When you select it here, we have this button here called Add Version. And so what you can do is just click this. And then you step through just a smaller bit of that wizard there where you can upload the next version of the software. And then over in configuration, you can make sure the version number increases properly. If you did have any custom detection rules, you can modify those if needed, and then hit save. And now it's telling me version 2 of my custom app has been uploaded. And so if we go check there, yep, you'll see that version 2 is now there. And so when our sync schedule runs, like I mentioned before, we're going to go through all your deployments and see if there's newer versions of the apps. And we're also going to do this for your custom apps too and see if you've uploaded any new ones. So at this point, you just upload the next version and then just kind of let your sync schedule run as normal. So yeah. Yeah, that's mostly the cloud side. And so this is all great for the Intune. Since we did have a couple questions on config manager side, I'll kind of show that as well. So I've got my lab environment here. Yeah, so if you are currently on in a config manager environment, we can also do Intune apps and updates here. So you'll kind of notice here, I do have these options here. The cloud is just a little bit easier to get set up, especially if you are Intune only at this time. But when running on config manager, we have our publisher, we call it, which is a on-prem version, which currently, like I said, it does config manager and Intune. And so what we focus on doing is the same thing. We do applications and then we do software updates. So over on the config manager side, the way that this translates to is this updates tab here. This is going to point over to the software update section of the config manager console. And then the application side is going to be this config manager apps tab here. This is where we're putting this information here. So yeah, on the general side, you're going to see your license key and all that. And so for the software updates, we do need a code signing certificate to sign those updates before they go in there. And so, yeah, we can basically show all that. So yeah, just kind of as an example here, because I know this is more of an Intune class, I can just enable these and be able to publish those over that way. It looks like there was a question about patching servers. Kind of depends how you're doing it. Currently, right now, you can kind of leverage this on-prem tool in a WSUS standalone scenario. If you're managing them through Arc, that is something you could do. I think we actually have a blog post on that I could probably throw in the chat. I think Ben did that one. But currently no standalone server cloud management for through Patch My PC at this time. Just because, yeah, there's no direct third-party integration for that. And Kevin, so yeah, we basically can do all three of those individually. So if you only had WSUS, SCM, or Intune, you can use Patch My PC for either three of those. Delegation capabilities available. For the cloud portal, it was kind of what I mentioned with the user section here. So you can kind of determine what the role is for each user that way. So really, this is just like what access you have within the Patch My PC portal, and then what you can push over to Intune. And then on the config manager side, though, you do need to be at least a local admin of the machine that this publisher is installed on to control it currently. And then Cameron's question on the custom apps. It's not specific to custom apps, but we do have this event section here. And so you'll notice basically I can kind of see like all the user info and then kind of what happened. So it's a bit of an audit log there for what's going on in the yeah. So that way you can kind of come in here and see who deployed something they probably shouldn't have. And then you can always export this list too quickly to a CSV file if you had to. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, any other questions? So yeah. I mean, the main thing is, knowing how to deploy apps and all that, you should know how to do it because it definitely helps with the troubleshooting side because because we can deploy them doesn't mean it's going to work every time. Everyone's environment's different. If you've got 580, EDRs running on your machine, that's going to be a problem too. So it's good to know how what's actually happening in the background to troubleshoot any of these installation errors around the apps too.
There any reports, advanced reports that could be presented to security guys? Or
we currently, so if you're Intune only, we are currently in public preview for some reporting tools out of here. For Config Manager, we do have what we call Advanced Insights, and so it looks like this. And so this is tapping into that database for that. So basically, what we're going to have, in production, soon is basically something that looks like this, but it will live over in the cloud portal here. And so yeah, we've actually demoed this a few times, most recently at the MMS conference in Nashville. But yeah, basically we'll be able to do a couple things. So we'll be able to pull over some data from Graph API and be able to kind of show some reports and charts this way. As well as if you become a premium customer, you do have the option to deploy a client on the machine, which can collect even more data, like around hardware. So an example from the config manager side is our display section, where we can actually determine like what monitors are plugged into the computer. And so we can actually see like, is that external monitor plugged in with the display port or HDMI cable? You can see resolution and serial number. Yeah, we can do a lot of some cool stuff like that. And so that'll be coming to the cloud in production, soonish, I'll say.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then yeah, I think there was a question. We do have free trials. I'll put a link to that in the chat there. Costs you can find from our pricing page as well. Basically, we just have these 3 tiers here based off of your environment and what you've got in there. Yeah, patch is pretty much just WSUS and config manager for software updates. But plus is for Intune right now, given our current product set, plus is definitely where you want to be. Can I show the Mac OS patching process?
Hey,
yeah, go ahead, Johan.
no, I was gonna ask a question, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, Mac is pretty much similar process. So like 1Password here, we do have the Mac OS option. I can hit deploy here. You'll notice majority of the time the architecture we do have set to universal. We're trying to, at least maintain backwards compatibility with the Intel Macs for now. And then the installer type based off the vendor, if they do provide DMGs, we do both DMG and PKG. Thing that's a little different with the Mac OS side, we're a little limited on how we can upload packages for Mac into Intune. So we pretty much can just upload a PKG file or a DMG file. Something you can do with the PKGs is you can run scripts before or after that. Intune does support that. But we can't do any of our other stuff that we do, like running our script wrapper to delete shortcuts, stuff like that. And that's just because that's not supported as far as uploading an Intune Win file into for the Mac OS side now. But we can at least kind of do some of the role scope tab categories and retention policy, since that's more just settings on the Intune side. But from here, you do the assignments. The one thing that's very different about the assignments right now is there's no requirement script functionality with the Mac OS side in Intune. So we can't run that requirement script to determine if the device actually needs the update. So currently the way to do that is you would just have to create a required deployment for a group of devices. that you know need the update, and then you just have to set it to required, and as we automatically update it, that would update the device. But yeah, basically just hit required in the same way, and then you'll see the deployment here, and then we just push it over to Intune, very similar to how we do the Windows side. Yeah, no problem. We don't have any formal like training or services, but we do offer. Let me go back to this tab. We do offer both setup calls and then environment review calls that we typically use. Kind of, especially if you have questions kind of along the way. Environment review calls are great, especially if you have like some turnover in your org. You need to kind of teach someone and kind of get them familiar with it. Typically, these calls here you can schedule them, and they'll all be included in your license as well. But basically, yeah, we can just kind of hop on a call, similar like what we're doing right now, and we can kind of just go through your environment and the setup and kind of talk through some features. We're also very active on the WinAdmins Discord too, so you can always hop over there, and there's quite a few of us in there willing to help out.
Michael, I got a question regarding the update here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Do you know by chance if that's a configuration needs to be set up, or is that a built-in configuration where Intune detects that there's a newer version out there and it auto updates and transfer all those assignments over?
So essentially, we're doing the checking of a newer version of the application, and so that's kind of built into our catalog. So we have things on our side that are checking the vendors for newer versions. As we do find the new versions, we kind of go through some checks internally, make sure that new version works and all that. And so we're building out our own catalog and the metadata around that as far as where that new version is. And so when the sync schedule here in the setting, when this runs, what we're actually doing is we're going down your deployments here for each of these apps, checking against our catalog for new versions. And if they do exist, then we go and basically just create the app over on the Intune side. So nothing actually occurs on the Intune side as far as like determining the next version. It's all done on our side here.
Okay, and then that also transfer whatever assignments on that application or software to as well, or do we have to manually configure that or transfer those?
So it kind of depends. It kind of depends how you've configured the deployment here. So like if I edit this one for Chrome, how we did earlier, this assignments tab, whatever you've set up here, I guess a good way to think about the whole deployment is this is kind of a template itself. So you're saying every time a new version is available, create that new version package and then reapply all these settings here. And so this will include the assignments as well. So basically, as we create the next version of the app, if you opt to keep a couple older versions of the app, what we'll do is remove the assignments from those ones. So those no longer get deployed. And then we reapply all these assignments here to the new version. So yeah, you're essentially not having to manage the assignments either,
Okay.
if that's what you want.
Gotcha. And that's pre-built in, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's worth mentioning here that the platform is doing the configuration in Intune for you if you want it to be done for you. But then it's the built-in Intune mechanism that goes ahead and actually pushes the stuff out. So as far as I know, PatchMapC doesn't do anything that Intune cannot do as a platform. They just take care of the admin part of it.
Correct. Yeah. So any limitations as far as how Intune deploys and installs the app, like we're kind of having to work within those just because we're, like you said, Jan, yeah, we're just administering Intune. We're not really doing anything else outside of that.
I mean, just is probably not the right word, because if you would have to do this manually for a couple of hundred apps, you'll be spending weeks, if not months, doing it manually.
Yeah.
Takes a while.
Yeah. And that's what I do like to tell some people, especially when I'm giving demos, is that like, I'm not trying to say you don't know how to package an app. I'm just saying you shouldn't have to do it every month or week, especially Chrome. I mean, there's a lot of Thursday ones, and then who knows what other CVs happen in the middle of the week. It's just, you have better things to do, I guess, than repackaging the next version of Chrome. So. Yeah, and I
All
can
right.
kind of see. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No.
Yeah, I was just gonna see if this update pushed over here. I think my cloud PC might have already installed it. Oh, it did. Yeah, 142. I'm already on it. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I kind of didn't do my sacrificial demo god thing to make sure this worked right, but yeah.
Awesome, Michael. Thank you so much for taking your time joining us. Really appreciate it. And once again, we appreciate what you do, not just as the vendor, but for the community as well. So keep up the good work. And guess I see some of you up in Dallas for WP Ninja, otherwise MMS in May.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll put one more link here to our blog, because we do have not just app related stuff, but a lot of Intune content here as well to help you out. We have Rudy Ooms, who's a blog machine. So yeah, check that out just for any kind of issues you've got. So yeah.
Yeah, make sure you have time when you start to read Rudy's blog posts, because they're often very, very technical by nature and takes a couple of minutes to get through.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, thank you everyone for your questions and stuff. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Awesome.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Michael.
All right. That was that. We had one more thing to do for the day, and that is finish up a lab on software updates. We actually have 2 labs on software updates. The other one is a feature update, and that is one of the labs that you have the availability to do on Friday afternoon before you eventually take the weekend there. But I will go ahead and put that lab in the chat for you. Since Andrew and I are hosting office hours at 4:30 today, we're going to end up a little bit earlier, around 4:10, 4:15, to get us a chance to prepare for that one. If anyone wants to join, please do. We'd love to have you there. But also, as you said earlier, we totally understand if you had a long day already, especially the folks over in Europe and over in Australia that has been almost spending the entire night with us here. We're not be upset if you don't join office hours. But I'm gonna, whoops. I need to learn how to drag and drop stuff. Here we are. That is the last lab for today, and otherwise we'll be back in the morning, of course, with Team Cloudway again, but focusing on automation and reporting, customization, goodness. But yeah, that's where we are, and I will be here for another 27 minutes or so. And if the folks over in Europe want to do this lab in the morning, by all means, do the lab in the morning, no problem. All right, everyone, we're going to close down this meeting for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. And for those of you who join us office hours, I guess we'll see you in about 15 minutes. So thanks again. Have a good night, and yeah, see you later.
Thanks, everyone. See you in a few, Johan.
Yeah, yes, sir.